Good morning, everybody. What a pleasure to be here and to be on the stage and to present some of the work we do at the Dutch Digital Heritage Network. And I did some digging in the history, and I was a little shocked actually, because it was already 6 years ago that I was on the Swift stage as well. And then I talked about the plans we were making for creating the infrastructure for digital heritage in the Netherlands. And I was a little shocked that it's already 6 years ago. So what did we do all the time? But I'm very happy to be able to present part of the results we had so far. And the network of terms is one of the services we developed, which is very similar actually to the kind of solution we just saw. At least it's trying to solve the similar problem. But as you will see, we do that with a different approach. And I think it's very interesting and well done for the organizers to put the different solutions next to each other. And I hope it will create some interesting questions from you. So let's start. Before I start talking about the network of terms, I think it's useful to spend a few words on the Dutch Digital Heritage Network, because that will probably not be already known to you what it is. And it is, like I said, it started quite some time ago. In 2015, the Heritage Institutes in the Netherlands, together with the Ministry of Culture, decided to sit down and write a strategy which is really about ways to increase the social value of the digital heritage information. And as you know, and it's going on everywhere, a lot of effort is being put in digitization of collections, in publishing collections, creating search interfaces, search APIs on all different kinds of collections. But for the end user, for just the citizen in the Netherlands, it's really difficult to find all the pieces. And especially, I think, looking at cultural heritage information, it is really important to find the pieces if you want to tell the whole story. So often about an artist or a writer or somebody else, you will find pieces of information within archive collections, within library collections, within museum collections. So, but also in collections that volunteers create in their attic, and it's probably in every country, but in the Netherlands there are really a lot of volunteers, and they're very productive as well. And it's really hard to find all the pieces of information, and that is basically the problem we're trying to solve, mainly not through the technical infrastructure. I will be talking to them about it, but the main point is creating cooperations between all the different parties in the network. And that is where the strategy is being written about, and is trying to activate all the different parties to work together and share the information and think about the value of the user. Use that as a starting point for creating your services. And already from the start, it was when the national strategy was written, it was already said, okay, and we are going to use linked data technologies to make this happen. And I was there at the table, basically as the only linked data specialist in the room, and I was kind of alarmed when it was written down that way. But we were brave, and we started working, and to get a grip of an idea of the whole network, sorry for the Dutch, just copied it from our website. But we are basically a network of networks. So we have library networks, we have archival networks, we have networks of museums, but also performing art, architecture, archives. So it's really diverse, and we try to implement the same principles in all the different networks. And we do that, and that's something that started also right from the start with a reference architecture where we invited all the architects and specialists from all the different communities to sit together and describe their use case and describe the way, or at least agree upon the way how we can work together, how we can create an interoperable network for creating value for the user. And that is really the starting principle for the reference architecture. So it's not looking at all the processes in all the different institutes. It's not trying to align everything behind the walls. It's trying to make agreements how you publish data and how data can be interoperable and can be reused in all different kinds of platforms for services for end users. And it's ongoing work. Next to that, what I said, it's really about building the network, and we have a huge program with a lot of different topics in there. And we started working from basically the three-layered approach. The visible really geared towards the end users, which are all type of users in there. So from citizens to academics doing research in digital humanities and collections, or every type of user is within the scope, and we try to create services within the network that can be that serve all the different user needs in there. We do that by creating an interoperable network of services, and that's what we call the usable layer, and we build that on top of a sustainable layer where we really urge the institutions to think about their sustainable actions, make them think about how can you preserve your digital information, make it in a sustainable way, and things like implementing persistent identifier, think about persistent repositories, etc. Well, and next to that, there's also a program for really working about the knowledge for the people, do training, education, etc. So that's quite something, quite a large program, and it's not run from 5 people sitting in a room and running a program. It's really something we try to build up from the network itself, get all the institutions involved and try to work together with all of them. I will continue zooming in on the infrastructure part of the program. And right from the start we said, okay, we want to take a different approach of building an infrastructure for digital heritage. Instead of building large platforms where we build interesting services, we want to go back to the data in the source, and we want to try to improve the interoperability of the data directly at the source. That was a very important starting point, and based on standardization at the source, based on implementing linked data technologies, and that was basically the story I told in 2017. We want to create a network where we can have dynamic services. Okay, thank you. I'll really speed up. So we want to create dynamic services, and we are we build services on top of an infrastructure, and we do experiments with it, and this is just something I would like to show. This is a pilot we did with an interface for navigating through collections based on art movements, and we use the same kind of logic to navigate through photos of churches ordered by provinces in the Netherlands. So that's the kind of generic things we're trying to achieve there. And this is the basic starting point, looking at the infrastructure from a top level. And one step we heard already from Richard Wallace is implementing schema.org back at the institutes in order to improve the visibility on the web. That is just one basic step we want to make. But a lot of data is being aggregated at data platforms. And in order to combine all the data together on the platform, we try to standardize, and that's where the network of terms comes in. We also built a dataset register where all the collections are being found, and based on that we are building knowledge graph services on top of the dataset information, looking at the real contents of the dataset. And based on that, we're building service platforms. And these are, it's not, I say we are building, but I mean we in the network, and we try to have parties building parts of this infrastructure in all different ways. Now I come to the network of terms, and this is just one picture showing our graphical thing to show why we want to build a network of terms, of course. These are on the left side all different collections that talk about the same person. We want really a URI for that person, so we can build knowledge. We can create linked data entailing knowledge about the relation, and that helps the discoverability of the collection. So that is a very global idea. We have a lot of resources available in the network of terms, and these are all available through Sparko endpoints. And this is a very basic thing for the network of terms. We are only using data that is available on Sparko endpoints. And you see national sources, international sources like the CATI, but also regional sources where people just sit together and say, okay, for our region, this is a very important authority data. Well, the default approach for building a system like this, where you can find the URI that matches a string, is directly integrate all the different APIs within your system. Well, that is, as we all know, that is very hard work to do, and creates a lot of challenges. Another approach, and we see, I think that resonates with the picture and with the talk we had before as well, is building platforms where you aggregate the data and then offer an interface to all different systems. But still, that's still quite heavy to do. We decided to build the network of terms as a platform in between all the different authority sources, terminology sources, and the end user systems, like the management systems in all the different organizations. And we decided to always map the output to a standardized SCOS format. That was a very important step, because we're only supporting the discoverability of the URI. We are not delivering the URI. We just say, okay, if you look for this term, you can find this URI that might be relevant for you. And the URI is a linked data URI where you can find the data and how it's defined there. And a second step we did is we chose the API as being a GraphQL API, which is a really standardized JSON API made popular by Facebook, but it's very known to all different kinds of developers. And in our experience, people in general have very little problems with implementing a GraphQL API. And on the bottom side, we said, okay, we only connect sources through Sparkle endpoints. So we're always building on data that is available on Sparkle endpoints. There is a challenge, of course, but we work together with the owners of the authority data to have that data being published as linked data. And if that's hard, then we try to facilitate them by offering them even a Sparkle endpoint if we need to. And that is how we work together. And because the URI is published at the source in the end, providing the Sparkle endpoint is not really a big deal because you always point back to the source where the URI should be as an authority definition. This is a live demo and I hope I didn't test this. But this is a search query and where you see the results coming back, and the results are, you can choose what kind of sources you want to search through. And this is the result from the AAT, but only the materials in the AAT. And if you want, you can even browse through the hierarchy of the AAT through the lookup function. Please come to me after my talk and I'll have some more time to demonstrate it all. Because it's really about the API. We want to implement the API in all the different management systems. And like I said, it's GraphQL API, which is very flexible and gives back standardized SCOs. So you always know as an implementation party what you can expect. And the mapping to SCOs is done by Sparkle, and we use Sparkle queries to do the mapping. So the selection part is in the where clause. There we select all the different properties and we try to find as many properties as relevant for the user, so the user has enough information to make the selection for the URI. And we map that using a Sparkle construct to a SCOS vocabulary. And to make it perform, we spent a lot of time on figuring out how the full text indexes of Sparkle endpoints work. And that is something that really needs a lot of work. On the implementation side, there needs to be done. The specifications need to be extended in my vision. We also created a reconciliation API service, and that opens the possibility to use it through Open and Refine. And every terminology source that is being configured in the network of terms offers directly a reconciliation service API through the network of terms. And we only prohibit that if the source has already its own reconciliation endpoint. All the source code is available on GitHub under the European Public License, so it's open source, and we created, for the workshop yesterday, we created a tutorial that should be able to run through it in a self-paced way, and it gives you the opportunity to configure your own catalog. And there are examples, in the example directory of this GitHub, there are examples from different catalogs, like the ZBW or the SEM Open Alex data, and there's also a catalog that approaches that, so have a look at it. In the tutorial and in the advanced topic, there is a section about how to configure full text search for all the different Sparkle endpoints, as far as we come across them, for CraftDB, for Virtuoso, for Fuseki, and others. And that is something that if you own a Sparkle endpoint and you configure it for full search, please publish your information about your configuration, because this is really hard to figure out how things are really working, and it's not standardized. So that is something to pay attention to. So far, we implemented in almost all major management systems in the cultural heritage institutions. Almost all of them support a connection to the network of terms. We are now working on the implementation, so we urge the institutions to start using the latest version of their software. And we also created some other implementations. Even somebody in our network created a VS Code extension to play around with the network of terms. So if you're lonely on your hotel room tonight, have fun with it. These are some statistics. I was really surprised because we have our statistics module running for not so long time, but I could make a picture of a full month of August, and we ended up with more than 6 million queries on our API, resulting in over 350 million Sparkle queries on the different endpoints. So, and that with a 0.3 percentage of timeouts, and I was really happy with it. So for us, federated querying over linked data works, and we have, of course, a simple use case, but so far it is working, and that is something that's federated querying and linked data is a topic that is being discussed a lot. But for us it works, and part of the success, I think, is that we're using the Communica framework developed by the University of Ghent, which is really a smart platform to do the linked data querying. Like I said, I think we need to pay attention to standardizing full text search within Sparkle, because it's really complicated. And the network of terms is a generic tool, so give it a try and let us know what you think. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Enno. And now we have time for questions. So,
I know. Thanks for the talk. That's really great. I hope you you prepared yourself for the question, because it's going to be exactly the same one as for Stephen. Do you do anything specific to handle those cases of co-references between concepts? And I understand that you have this reconciliation API, so probably then you've got co-references to handle. And yeah, how do you treat them?
Yeah, I was indeed expecting that question from me. So, and I'm basically giving the same answer. What kind of source is being used is a decision by the data manager itself. They say, okay, I will just align all my terms to the AAT or to the National Thesaurus of Authors or to Wikidata persons, whatever they choose, and they probably want to choose something that is consistent, so that all the terms are coming from the same kind of authority source. That's at least what I would advise. What we are doing, and that's the part I showed a little bit about, the knowledge graphs we are building, and we're not doing that, but that is the plan in order to build a knowledge graph that has data about these kind of relations, that know what kind of relations there are between the terminology sources. And we urge the creators of the authority data to make the relations explicit. If you're describing a person that is exactly the same person as in another, even maybe more well-known authority, please make the relation using same as or related or whatever is appropriate. So that is the way we look at it. And we're not trying to solve that through the search application, which is the network of terms. Okay.
Thank you. I'll go just after Antoine. So, Enno, thank you very much. I think that's a great work, because when you all are aligned on terminology, then you can build up on that. So that's a critical first step. So my question is, you mentioned the GraphQL endpoint, and as it was spoken at the workshop yesterday, so the greatest achievement of linked data is when we actually go beyond the linked data and when the real people start using it. So do you experience like an uptake of your GraphQL endpoint, and do you monitor that? And are there any, let's say, out of National Heritage Network users that actually utilize the GraphQL interface?
What? Sorry, what did you mean with uptake in this respect? Because
Are there any like external applications that are using the GraphQL endpoint to render the services to the end users? Like, I don't know, map-oriented services for the users to navigate around the city and prompt them to I don't know. It could be anything. So
yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Well, these numbers up there are coming from external applications that are using our API.
Okay.
And of course, we have our own demonstrator up there. And to be honest, people that don't have an integration with the API go to the demonstrator and do the queries there and copy the results back to the system. But mainly, these figures are mainly from the reconciliation API and the integration in the different systems. So yes, it is, there is uptake. And I must say, the experiences are good actually, because if you ask parties to implement linked data specific APIs, you need to have a long conversation. But if you say, hey, this is a GraphQL API that gives you JSON back, then you can be you have a very brief story. Because people just understand the concept, and the GraphQL is fully self-documented. You can find the whole schema, etc. So it's people are, especially people that don't have experience with linked data, are really anxious to use this. So thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, there don't seem to be more questions for now. So let's thank the speaker again.